A philosopher can be a good historian. Was Vaishampayan a historian or a philosopher? The composer of our Mahabharata and many other texts. Shankaracharya, a historian or a philosopher? Was Valmiki a historian, a poet or a philosopher? We all struggle to figure and pigeonhole them. That's what historians have done. I'm not going to criticize anybody, but you will all know.
But from the late 50s, early 60s, we sort of thought that Sanskrit is something which is meant for the pujaris. It ceased to be a sexy subject. It became something which was an optional extra, which was some drudge. And part of that drudge also became the attempt to make it into a conversational language, which it's not. The legacy which we have of a classical language was lost, and I think this affected our ability to understand our history. I think one of the big problems which we face occasionally, even when we are studying ancient India, is that many of the languages in which the scripts are written no longer have enough scholars in this country who have an awareness of it. So, with the result, we are completely dependent on somebody else's version of it. At present, for example, I would tell you, there's a good friend of mine, a chap called William Dalrymple.
But what I find very surprising is that in the post-independence period, we have consciously, deliberately not given space to native voices. There are so many evidences that we have of people speaking about the times in which they were living, and those voices do not figure in our narrative at all.
No, I think let's stop blaming historians. I firmly believe change happens from the top down.
Many Kashmiri warriors were killed by honey trapping, whether King Waka in 665 BC or Rifleman Aurangzeb in 2018.
Now I would request Sri Agast Indra Udyanji to bless us. Before this, I would like to give a brief introduction of Sri Indra Udyanji. Sri Agast Indra Udyanji was born and raised in Indonesia, but has strongly embraced Gandhian values throughout his life. He has promoted Indian principles of non-violence, truth and humanity. He established 4 ashrams in Indonesia as centers for these ideals. Additionally, he has been involved in significant projects such as the Dash to Diamond project and the Indonesia-India Sangam initiative. His dedication earned him the Jamnalal Bajaj International Award in 2011, and the Padma Shri Award is in 2020 for his notable socio-cultural contribution. I request Guruji to bless us with his kind words. Thank you.
Om Swasti Astu. In our world, still, you are Viswaguru. We call Om Swasti Astu. For like you Namaskar, we start always in the morning. Om Swasti Astu. Thank you. I just read, I don't want to miss, because with the in front of the intellectual forum this time, it is a real privilege for me to standing here and to little speech about the bridge between Indonesia, India, of course. 75 years, the diplomatic relationship between Indonesia and India now. The first country support Indonesia is India. And the first country to support you when you are independent also Indonesia. Therefore, the long relations. In our symbol, we call Pancasila, then written Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. That is in Sanskrit. Our airlines, Garuda Indonesia. If you come to our currency, you have most from 50, 100, all Mahatma Gandhi. We have Ganesh. The symbol of the big institution also in Indonesia, like Institute of Technology Bandung. That is Garud. And Ganesha, big Ganesha. Just 5 years ago, when we start the library in Universitas Islam Indonesia, what they find when they do Bumi Puja? All the statue of Sivalinga, everything in Java. You see, you say Jairam now, but in Prambanan in Jogja, all the sculpture of Ramayana is there. And till now, Ramayana is becoming of the curriculum for the university students, even they are Muslim. Then how the relationship? Then the last yoga, Modi ji's announced 21st of June, International Yoga Day. The essence of yoga is silence. We are still preserved. What is the silence? In Indonesia, in Bali mostly, till now, we have silence day, 36 hours in silence. Airport closed this March only. Every year, Muslim March. Airport closed. We cannot go outside. We are chanting the mantra, all. We still Trisandhya. 3 times. You can see in the television, in the radio, every morning 6 o'clock before Brahma Murta, there is Trisandhya, the Gayatri. Afternoon, evening, 3 times. Still we are preserved. Yes, we are not forget the root. India is the root, but the fruit in Indonesia, still the fruit in Indonesia. You see, compulsory in Indonesia, when we go to the temple, we should wear our lungi like this for the boys and the girls. But here we lost. You go with jean, we go with short pants. Then hope World Intellectual Foundation, when in the discussion still, we should preserve our heritage and promoting our cultures. And thanks, of course, to Sri Sudan Sumitarji, founder and mentor of the foundation, whose vision and guidance have faith remarkable. This, then meet. This is just like a sangam, like the Triveni, Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati. You see, this is the symbol, Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati, but here is a sangam, all intellectual. I see all the artists, the really intellectual, the woman. Therefore, you see, our mantra still in the morning, we are also in Indonesia, Twameva mata, Chapita Twameva, Twameva bandhu, Sasaka Twameva, Twameva vidya, Draminam Twameva, Twameva sarvam, Mama Deva Deva, Twameva sarvam, Guru Deva Deva. Why Twameva mata first? Why not Twameva pita first? Why mata? Bharat mata ki. Then you say mata, why you not call Bharat pita ki? You say Mother Ganga. The water, mother also. Therefore here, thanks to my loving sister, Himagi Sinha, you are doing very good work to connect people, of course, together. Very good work. Therefore, India is Vishwaguru. Therefore, India is Vishwaguru. You come here, no wonder face like this. All like lion. Yeah. All your eyes really pure to do something good for the society. Therefore, in 75 years of the relationship Indonesia through the World Intellectual Foundation, someday make a trip to Indonesia. Now Vistara, direct flight. I am also becoming Minister of Tourism of Indonesia to promoting. We are so many. And the last, our religion is Tirtha. Islam use water. You see, from Mecca, Zamzam. Christian use water. Buddhism use water. We are also use water. Hinduism. But in Indonesia, all as pandit like me, why my hair like this? Actually, 2019, I'm already finished my, I just happy to be sannyas. But 2020, the government India give me the Padma Shri Award. Then I should use my name. My name is Siddharasi Putra Manuaba after sannyas. But I should make original name. Then when I met Modi ji, he say, I am also brahmachari like you. I am doing the best for my country. You should doing the best for your country. Therefore, thank you to everyone here. This is the opening. Hope we are not talk about the India only, but India is Vishwaguru. You see now in anywhere there is a temple of Hindu. There is in Muslim country, not just only Hindu I brought, but all. The Sarva Dharma is from the world of our Indian contribution to the world. Then hope this forum, World Intellectual Foundation, make a good remark and also promoting the bridge. Nowadays, not only India, but India how becoming inspiration to the world. Vaisudeva Kutumbakam. Thanks very much. Om Santi, 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 Om.
Thank you so much, Sri Agast Indra Udyanji, to bless us with his kind words and guidance. Moving ahead, I would like to draw your attention back to the first session of the evening. हाँ, आज के हमारे मुख्य अतिथि ऑनरेबल लेफ्टिनेंट गवर्नर जम्मू एंड कश्मीर श्री मनोज सिन्हा जी थे, पर किन्हीं कारणवश वो हमारे बीच उपस्थित नहीं हो पाए हैं, पर उन्होंने हमारे हम भारतीय ग्लोबल डायलॉग सीरीज़ के लिए अपनी शुभकामनाएं भेजी हैं, तो हम आपको 2 मिनट उनका वक्तव्य सुनाते हैं।
मुझे जानकर अत्यंत प्रसन्नता हो रही है कि वर्ल्ड इंटेलेक्चुअल फाउंडेशन द्वारा प्रथम ग्लोबल डायलॉग मुझे जानकर अत्यंत प्रसन्नता हो रही है कि वर्ल्ड इंटेलेक्चुअल फाउंडेशन द्वारा प्रथम ग्लोबल डायलॉग हम भारतीय का आयोजन किया जा रहा है। मैं सुधांशु जी को, जो इसके ट्रस्टी हैं, हृदय से बधाई देना चाहता हूं। व्यक्तिगत तौर पर मैं उस कार्यक्रम में उपस्थित रहना चाहता था, लेकिन कुछ अपरिहार्य कारणों से मैं नहीं आ रहा हूं। इसके लिए मैं आप सबसे क्षमा चाहता हूं। कल्हड़ से लेकर कालांतर तक के विषय पर जम्मू कश्मीर को लेकर के भी इस आयोजन में एक चर्चा होनी है। ये सच है कि लंबे समय तक जम्मू कश्मीर को बदलने का अनेक प्रयास इस देश में हुआ। सांस्कृतिक रूप से, आध्यात्मिक रूप से जम्मू कश्मीर की एक विरासत रही है और बहुत समृद्ध विरासत रही है। लेकिन किन्हीं काल कारणों में मुझे लगता है कि जम्मू कश्मीर अपनी वो ऊंचाई नहीं प्राप्त कर सका जो उसे प्राप्त करना चाहिए था। भारत के सम्माननीय प्रधानमंत्री श्रीमान नरेंद्र मोदी जी की दृढ़ इच्छा शक्ति के कारण एक ऐतिहासिक परिवर्तन 5 अगस्त 2019 को हुआ और उसके बाद जम्मू कश्मीर में भेदभाव की जो व्यवस्था थी वो पूरी तरह से समाप्त हो गई। सामाजिक और आर्थिक विकास के नए मानक स्थापित हुए। आज अपनी मर्जी से जीने का हक लोगों को मिला है। और डिफरेंट पैरामीटर्स पर आज जब हम जम्मू कश्मीर को देखते हैं तो मुझे लगता है कि देश के बाकी राज्यों के साथ आज जम्मू कश्मीर छलांग लगाने को तैयार है। वहाँ के युवाओं में नई आकांक्षा पैदा हुई है और मैं समझता हूँ कि जब विकसित भारत बनेगा तो जम्मू कश्मीर का भी योगदान किसी से कम नहीं होगा। इस दिशा में जम्मू कश्मीर आगे बढ़ रहा है। मुझे बताते हुए प्रसन्नता है कि अब 30-32 सालों बाद वहाँ सिनेमा फिर से शुरू हो गया है। देश भर के बॉलीवुड के लोग आकर के फिल्म्स की शूटिंग कर रहे हैं। 34 साल बाद मुहर्रम का जुलूस निकला है। अब हड़ताल इतिहास की बात हो गई, पत्थरबाजी इतिहास की बात हो गई और मुझे लगता है कि लेट नाइट लाइफ अब वहाँ के जीवन का एक अंग बन गई। अर्बन ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन को भी देखेंगे तो श्रीनगर शहर मैं कह सकता हूँ कि आज पूरे देश में चर्चा का विषय बना है। 100 किलोमीटर पेडेस्ट्रियन मार्ग बनाया गया है और यूरोप की तर्ज पर चाहे वो पोलो व्यू मार्केट हो या अनेक मार्केट बनाए गए हैं। मुझे लगता है कि शांति, समृद्धि और विकास के रास्ते पर जम्मू कश्मीर अग्रसर है। मैं उम्मीद करता हूं कि इस डायलॉग में निश्चित रूप से देश भर से जुटे हुए विद्वान इस पर चर्चा करेंगे और आगे जम्मू कश्मीर की दिशा क्या होगी इसमें कुछ सुझाव भी देंगे। मैं फिर से एक बार इस आयोजन से जुड़े सभी लोगों के प्रति हृदय से कृतज्ञता ज्ञापित करता हूं और सुधांशु मित्तल जी के प्रति विशेष रूप से आभारी हूं जिन्होंने मुझे आमंत्रित किया था और मैं क्षमा चाहता हूं कि अपरिहार्य कारणों से मैं आज उपस्थित व्यक्तिगत रूप से नहीं हो पा रहा।
सिन्हा जी का मैं माफ़ी चाहूँगी कि हमारे दूसरे सेशन की पैनलिस्ट याना मीर जी यहाँ थी जो मुझसे शिकायत कर रही थी कि दीप प्रज्वलन में आपने मुझे क्यों नहीं बुलाया। तो मैं आपसे बहुत बहुत माफ़ी चाहती हूँ याना मीर जी। आई एम रियली सॉरी। नहीं, आई एम वेरी सॉरी। आई एम वेरी सॉरी। Moving ahead, I would like to draw your attention back to the first session of the evening. भारतीय इतिहास को सही दृष्टि से देखना एक सशक्त राष्ट्र के निर्माण की आधारशिला है। इसी विचार पर आगे बढ़ते हुए हम अपने पहले सत्र की शुरुआत करते हैं जिसका विषय है हाउ डज द हिस्टोरिकल नैरेटिव कंट्रीब्यूट टू आवर नेशनल प्राइड। So now I will call upon our esteemed panelists for the first session on stage. Our first distinguished guest on the panel is Sri Swapan Das Gupta ji. Swapan Da was the honorable member of Rajya Sabha from 21-22. He is an acclaimed political thinker. He's a renowned columnist and he written his works in media houses like Indian Express, Times of India and Statesman. He has written a seminal work, Awakening Bharat Mata. For his exemplary contribution, he was conferred with Padma Bhushan in 2015. Our distinguished second panelist is Dr. Meenakshi Jain. Dr. Meenakshi Jain is a retired associate professor from Gargi College, University of Delhi. She has worked immensely in enriching Indian history and has rewritten the NCERT Medieval History textbook. Her work include Ram and Ayodhya, Parallel Pathways, Sati, and the Battle of Rama, among others. She was conferred with Padma Shri in the year 2020. Our distinguished third panelist is Professor Anand Rangnathan ji, who serves as Professor of Molecular... Please, sir. Anand Rangnathan ji serves as Professor of Molecular Medicine at Jawaharlal Nehru University. He has made notable contribution to the Indic knowledge, tradition and historical discourse. His work, Hindus in Hindu Rashtra, stand as a significant contribution to Indian history and culture. Our fourth distinguished panelist of the session is the one and only Shri J. Sai Deepak. Shri J. Sai Deepak is an advocate of the Supreme Court of India and has been a part of many historical judgments. Additionally, he is the author of acclaimed works such as India, that is Bharat, and India, Bharat, and Pakistan. His ideas have simulated greater minds around the world. The moderator for the session is Professor Hiraman Tiwari. Professor. Professor Hiraman Tiwari serves as the Dean of the Center for Historical Studies at Jawaharlal Nehru University. Renowned for his seminal contribution to Sanskrit literature and Indian philosophical traditions, he has authored influential works such as Culture, People and Power, Epic Identity, and Humanism in Ancient India, among others. Now I would request Professor Hiraman Tiwari to take the session forward.
Namaskar, pranam to everybody. And thank you, Hemangiji. Thank you really for this opportunity. I'm particularly grateful to the foundation and its chairman, Sudhanshu Mittalji, and his Dharmapatni, Dr. Mittalji, his entire family, and whoever is involved in this Bharatiya work that he's doing. And I'm particularly privileged to be standing here and becoming a moderator. I thought I would be speaking for a long time, but Hemangi told me, no, my job was to make others speak. But since speaking is the source of my bread and butter, I will speak for a while. And I feel a little nervous today, although at least 60 rains have come and gone in my life. And in the company, because there is the company of these intimidating intellectuals on the podium, these thought leaders, or what I would call them, Agra Janmana. Etad desha prasutasya sakashad Agra Janmana swam swam charitram shiksheran prathivyam sarva manavaha. This land, as Guruji was, to pranam to Guruji, was saying, is a land of seekers, knowledge seekers, seekers of truth, of course. So these are Agra Janmana, and they have all had a remarkable intervention in the field of ideas of India today. Meenakshi Didi has, through her many scholarly writings, as you've been told, in Indian history and culture, brought about moving changes, if you like, at least people like me who feel that she has made such great intervention, particularly in the context of the way we have been taught and told history. Swapanda's long, illustrious, and lyrical writings have challenged the comfort of reading and representing our history. I did not know that his book will be referred to. I knew it will be referred to. And I was reading it today again after a few years. It was published 4 years ago. Of course, this is not the only contribution he has made. He, of course, is a trained historian, if you like. People know him as a journalist, as a writer, but I know him from Oxford, listening to his lectures, where he was a teacher and fellow in a field college, I believe, Sapanda. So he, for me, he begins as an academic, and then, of course, moves on to the business of writing, and writing down as well. And and Anand Rangnathan, what to speak of him? He's a dear friend and a colleague at JNU, quote unquote. And my hero and my son's hero, who is 24, 25, J. Sai Deepak. And my son made me think more about it. Of course, whenever he speaks, you know, he sends so many sparks that fire rises everywhere, that it enters the particular ear and cavity of the mind. These people are really, I think, igniting the volcanic emotions among the young and the old alike in India. And I'm not overstating anything that I'm saying here. And here I am, a mere student. I'm reminded of my favorite Kalidasa and Tulsi Baba. By the way, Kalidas is also the favorite of many, including giants like Rabindranath Tagore, Goethe, and Romarola. So it's nothing great that he is my hero. And so much so that Tagore also wrote a poem mimicking if I were in the time of Kalidas. Jodi hotam Kalidas Shamay. That long, lovely poem, he thought that he was Kalidas, which in fact he was. And why do I remember Kalidas or Tulsi at this moment? As I said, and there is a reason for that. And then my legs are shaking, standing before these 4 or 5 great intellectuals. And they are intimidating in many ways, in age, in knowledge, in their personality, in their fame and glory. In the opening verses of the great story of Rama that Kalidas writes, it's called Raghuvamsham. And he opens up, and by that time he has written a lot. He says, Kwasurya Prabho Vamshaha Kwachalpa Vishaya Matihi Titirshu Dustaram Moha Dutupe Nasmi Sagaram. Here is the great, glorious family called Raghu. I am going to write about it, as if somebody is going to write about Bharat Mata. Chopanda has done that. Awakening Bharat Mata. He didn't write it. He wants us to remember, get up in the morning and remember. Of course, that is a political and an intellectual narrative that he has set up for all of us to follow if we can. He says, Kwasurya Prabho Vamsha. Here is the great, glorious family of Raghus. And here I am with a tiny little mind, daring to write the story. Am I not like that fool who tries to cross a volatile ocean with a tiny little boat? Udupe Nasmi Sagaram. And Tulsi, of course, says in the same vein. So therefore, this is my long apology for what is to come. That is, I'm supposed to ask questions. I have been given questions by Himangi. I don't know whether I'll follow those questions or the questions will emerge. But I will still say my piece, which I wanted to say, in terms of what I look at after reading them, listening to them almost night after night, Anand and Sai Deepak ji. And of course, also Shapanda and Meenakshi, of course, keeps invoking all kinds of things. And she said, Hiraman, if you do not come, I will not come. So I said, that's why then in that case, I have to come. Still, as a student of Indian knowledge system, it's a term which is being used a lot these days, but people like us always have been getting inspiration from it. I always believe history to be a tale told by those generous with words and gifted in enthralling the keen listeners. That is how I look at history. A tale is not worth telling unless there is an audience for it. And when a tale excites questions like who are we, where are we coming from, how have we reached where we have reached, what do we make of what we are? Initially, such questions sound like questions in philosophy, and that also is my subject. But in philosophy, is philosophy different from history? Meenakshi would agree that it is not. But sometimes she says, Hiraman, you make everything, turn everything into philosophy. Perhaps. But try answering these questions philosophically, and I think we shall be able to get a most magical sense of history. A philosopher can be a good historian. Was Vaishampayan a historian or a philosopher? The composer of our Mahabharata and many other texts. Shankaracharya a historian or a philosopher? Was Valmiki a historian, a poet, or a philosopher? We all struggle to figure and pigeonhole them. That's what historians have done. I'm not going to criticize anybody, but you will all know. Or was Vyasa a hagiographer, a historian, or again a philosopher? These are difficult, even controversial questions if we subject them to modern historiography, methodology, and of course, science. And since I'm not a trained historian in the strictest sense of the term, I do not expect you to take these questions in a conventional historical perspective. But I do implore you to think about them. I like literature. I am trained in philosophy and history of ideas, which is fashionably called intellectual history. The first historian of ideas that I know in the world, and the first chair of history of ideas was established in Oxford sometime in 1960s for the first historian of ideas of the world, that is Isaiah Berlin, Sir Isaiah Berlin. And after that, many universities. So I think calling oneself an intellectual historian is much more fashionable than history of ideas that India tries to suggest to us. And so, like anyone else, I love good story. So permit me briefly to tell you a tale about a tale. The story of Rama opens with this powerful evocation. And to me, history begins from here. Tapaha swadhyaya niratam tapasvi vagvidam varam naradam paripapracha valmikir muni pungava. Every single syllable in this opening verse of the Valmiki Ramayana. And by the way, this verse exists even in the critical edition of the Ramayana. Why do I say even in the critical edition? Because critical edition has tried to purify what was Ramayana. There are multiple versions. Guruji said there is a Ramayana in Indonesia. I have read that. And one of my greatest, most favorite authors, and forgive Shapanda or anybody who does not like him, he is my most favorite author, that is, of course, Vidyadhar Suraj Prasad Naipaul. He has written two powerful books. One is called Among the Believers, the other is Beyond Belief. And if you really want to read about what Indonesia is, read these two books. Massive chapters are there, and Kalijaga and Bandung is in great detail. He describes how the history of that local island and people is so embedded with Indian history, Indian culture, Indian literature. So that is tapaha swadhyaya niratam. These are the aspects to look at what Swamiji Guruji said, looking for the truth, seeking the truth. Valmiki is supposed to have known everything, yet he needs to have a conversation with somebody, and therefore he asks one of the greatest miraculous sages of our tradition, that is Narada. Naradam paripapracha. Why? Because he was knower of everything. Yes, I remember that. So I'm just tempted to finish the story, as I said. Yeah? Yeah, I'm completing this. I thought I've taken only 5 or 10 minutes now. 20 minutes already. Okay. So let me come to that this is how the history begins from the Ramayana. And when you begin, and this is where I was going to come, that when Valmiki needs to ask somebody what he already knows how to write and how to compose his ideas, historical narrative, my job here is to ask questions of these people. I don't know whether I should plunge straight away into the questions or ask them one by one. So let me ask. Yeah, but that's what I'm going to ask. So can I request Shopanda to come here and make a brief remark, and then we will ask questions. Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much, Hiraman. Thank you, Sudhanshu, for inviting us to this very impressive gathering. I think everybody at some point has prefaced their remarks with the belief and assumption that India is on the cusp of a very major mindset change. We are, of course, in the midst of very other physical changes which we see around us, but most important is this mindset change. That mindset change is basically characterized by an explosion of self-confidence. Now, some of that self-confidence is a bit reckless, I do concede. But more than that, I think what everyone recognizes that we are no longer willing to be patronized by different parts of the world. That's the most important aspect which is there. And part of that has got to do with, of course, the soaring economic growth which we've witnessed. Part of it. But the larger question which we have is our intellectual development, our awareness of who we are, our self-identity, as clear as the economic path which we've chosen out to be? And here I would say, sometimes, in terms of our mindset, we are still handicapped by what we inherited in the past. And we inherited two facets. We inherited a civilization, but we also inherited the legacy of colonialism. I think Sai calls it coloniality. I'm not so, I'm a bit old-fashioned, so I just go by the old-fashioned thing of colonialism. But the imperial mindset, and here this is something which Hiraman should take note. Hiraman is one of those few scholars who blends an awareness of modern intellectual thought along with the entire legacy of Sanskrit. At one time, this was fairly common. But from the late 50s, early 60s, we sort of thought that Sanskrit is something which is meant for the pujaris. It ceased to be a sexy subject. It became something which was an optional extra, which was some drudge. And part of that drudge also became the attempt to make it into a conversational language, which it's not. The legacy which we have of a classical language was lost, and I think this affected our ability to understand our history. I think one of the big problems which we face occasionally, even when we are studying ancient India, is that many of the languages in which the scripts are written no longer have enough scholars in this country who have an awareness of it. So, with the result, we are completely dependent on somebody else's version of it. At present, for example, I would tell you, there's a good friend of mine, a chap called William Dalrymple. He's written two very good books. The book on Afghanistan and a book on the last days of the revolt of 1857. He's now put his hand to ancient India. And the results are quite comic. But that comedy is being digested uncritically by a lot of people. For instance, we are being told that Ashoka was half Greek. I mean, if he was good, then he had to be half white. Nah? We are told that there is nothing to suggest that the Gupta age was anything remarkable, because he says there are no inscriptions. His ignorance is basically made into conventional wisdom. And the difference is, earlier we would have digested it. I guarantee you that today we will not digest it. That's the big change. Now, some of this may come about because in social media, we have some people who are extremely combative. It may come about because on television here, two people on my left who actually shoot from the hip on a daily basis. And so that inhibition, that restraint, that understatement which mark people of my generation is probably not there. And I would say that that's a good thing. Because I think it's time we actually asserted ourselves. Gone are the days of extreme civility. I see Vivek here in front of me. And when he made his film Kashmir Files, a lot of people say it's a bit over the top, isn't it? Look, we've had enough subtlety as far as Kashmir is concerned, and it didn't register. So it was time when someone put it with a blunt sledgehammer, because what happened there was not a tea party. I think I'll leave that for the moment.
Thank you so much. Sir Shobhanath, thank you. Very, very grateful. And I like the bit that you said, and I'll come back to it, I hope, if we have time, that if you're any good, you have to be at least half white. So now it is my privilege to ask Meenakshi, and please keep 5 minutes, please.
It's very unfair that you ask us to speak for 5 minutes, making us wait for 2 hours. I'm sorry, I will not speak for 5 minutes. I'm really sorry. It's unfair. I mean, like 2 hours we have been waiting, and then you say 5 minutes. Okay, namaskar everyone. The topic that we are supposed to be discussing is, does historical narrative contribute to national pride? So I would like to answer that question in the following ways. First of all, it depends on who's controlling the narrative. In the colonial period, the narrative was being determined by the British historians. Can you hear me? Is it all right? Yeah. In the British period, the narrative was being dominated by British historians whose only objective was to show the Indians in very poor light as enfeebled people who had nothing going for them. That narrative continued, unfortunately, after independence, when an imported ideology became dominant in the historical narrative. So if you look at the way history was taught in the colonial period and the way it was taught for some decades after independence, there's a remarkable similarity. India was not united, it was weak, it was divided, all that happened. But what I find very surprising is that in the post-independence period, we have consciously, deliberately not given space to native voices. There are so many evidences that we have of people speaking about the times in which they were living, and those voices do not figure in our narrative at all. And I'll just give you 4 literary sources which were there available at the time of independence, which have continued to be available, but which have not factored in any attempt at history writing post-independence. So I'll just take 5 more minutes. The first account is by a person who was a minister in Gujarat, one of the courts in Gujarat. He was an eyewitness to the invasions of Mahmud Ghaznavi. So he writes about the invasions, and then he says that Mahmud Ghaznavi, when he was on the way back, he saw another beautiful temple. He tried to dislodge the image and destroy the temple, but he failed. As a historian, I'm not concerned whether this was right or wrong, but for me, the importance of this work is that it is a first narrative of resistance of the medieval period. The second narrative is absolutely remarkable. This first narrative was written in 1024. The second narrative that I'm talking about was written in 1333. That was the time when the Sultanate was at its peak. And there is a person who was also a minister. He gave up his job and went to all parts of the country that he could, which had been devastated by the invasions. And everywhere he went, he told the people, and this is a very revolutionary idea that he made, he said, don't worry if the images are damaged. Khandit murtiyon ko bhi puja karo. Because in these times, Khandit Murtis are as remarkable and as powerful as before. Today we take out Khandit Murtis, we cannot think. But the most important thing that Jin Prabhasuri is known for, his book is available, it has been translated. It is available for the last 50, 70 years. Now he talks, he says that there was an image when Muhammad Ghori defeated Prithviraj Chauhan. Then a message went, keep the images hidden away. So this particular image was buried under sand and kept there for 150 years almost. At some point, that image comes to Delhi, to the treasure house of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Now Jin Prabhasuri, he actually meets Muhammad bin Tughlaq and says that we want this image back. Muhammad bin Tughlaq asks for the image to be brought from his storehouse, looks at it and gives it to Jin Prabhasuri. And in 1334, Jin Prabhasuri is writing that I got the image, I reconsecrated it and built a small temple in Delhi, and we are so happy and proud that we are able to resume worship over there. These are absolutely remarkable instances which should feature in our history. I'm not saying whether it's true or not, but these are important narratives of resistance. I want to mention two more from the south. One is a lady, she was the wife of the Crown Prince of Vijayanagar. She wrote a poem called Madurai Vijay. Madurai Vijay was controlled by the Muslim Sultanate. And in this only one copy has survived by chance, and it is not complete. But in this poem, she says, Goddess Meenakshi came to my husband in a dream, and she said, look at what is happening around you. Kaveri is full of blood. In the Chidambaram temple, the mridang is being replaced by the howls of jackals. And she narrates whatever she sees, and then she gives Prince Kamban the sword of dharma. And she says, get up, do your dharma duty, and restore the order, the natural order. And it is a historical fact that Prince Kamban opens up many temples that had been closed and some that had been converted into mosques. So this is also a narrative of resistance, whether it happens or not, but these are eyewitness accounts of people who wrote at the time when these incidents happened. The last that I want to mention is that the Tirupati temple was under the control of the Sultan of Golconda for 150 years. So in that 150 years, I've been able to find only one native voice. That is a person who writes a 100 verses long poem in Telugu. Only 99 verses have survived, one has not. But those 99 verses, if you read them, they, fill you with sorrow, empathy. He's telling Tirupati, the god, that you are so powerful and you're helpless. Thousands of people are storming into your temple every day. Why don't you do anything? So this story of Tirupati, it does not end in triumph, because we have to remember that mostly the Hindu success story. I'll just take 2 minutes more. This is very irritating, You call us, make us wait, and then say finish in 5 minutes. What is the point in calling us? It's, okay, telling me to be calm, I'm being calm. Okay, but I have to register my protest. Okay, now, so this Tirupati poem, it does not see the triumph of the order or of dharma. It ends in anguish and defeat. And last 2 points that I want to make is that when we talk about anguish and defeat, and we think that every time the Hindus succeeded, most often they did not. And I'll give you the example of the Mahamatya of the Sri Rangnath temple. That Mahamatya records what happens when the Turkish armies come. First time they're totally unaware, they're defeated. In the second time, the processional murti is taken away by 3 priests of that temple, father, uncle, and son. And for 20 years, over 20 years, they live in the jungles. They eat from the jungle, 2 of them die. And when this young boy goes back to Rangnath, he is not allowed entry because nobody recognizes him. The young boy has become a wizened old man. And they say, we cannot allow you entry. They don't recognize the Murti. He said, this is Murti I ran away with. So the story of how this story unfolds, it's very, very sad and tragic. And last point, since there's a pressure of time, in the 18th century, till the 18th century, no temple in North India survived. They had all been devastated. So in the 18th century, when temple building began, because the Mughal Empire was in decline, we think that the first temple was a temple, Kardameshwar temple. So we think that is the first temple built in the 18th century. But when art historians saw that temple, they realized it is an assembled temple. It is not. That temple was built from the remains of so many temples that had been destroyed. And so if you see that temple, you'll see Khandit Murtis on the walls, devastated Murtis, everything. But you know, what I'm just saying is that all this narrative, it has to be remembered by us, because only when we remember the past can we move forward. And now India has taken a very big leap forward. People are becoming aware of this suppressed, forgotten history. They are getting joyous when they see that past, and we see a new hope and available in the country. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so I was told that's right. Okay, no problem. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Meenakshi Didi, and I'm very grateful to you for keeping the time you have.
Did I?
Yes, but I think the next person whom I'm going to call is master of keeping time. So I'm giving him his 10-30 seconds. Professor Anand Ranganathan, and you know him about him.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Hiramanda and Meenakshi ji, Swapanda, and my elder brother Jesai, and the audience, wonderful audience, Sudhanshu ji, and everyone from the foundation who invited me. It's a real pleasure and an honor. But at the outset, I must warn you that I am always only invited once to a place. 2 weeks ago, I was invited to a place to talk on politics and beyond, and I absolutely blasted the judiciary. I said, forget about politicians. It's the judiciary that needs to be taken to task. 50 million cases are pending, collegium system, there is so much of backbiting, there's so much of nepotism. And it's not just that the wheels of the judiciary are grinding slowly, they've come to a halt. It's an absolute abomination. And only later I realized that the person sitting next to me who lit the lamp was the Chief Justice of the Allahabad High Court. I forgot where my car was parked and I took the Uber and ran from there. And of course, many of you would have been very disappointed to know that the Honorable Governor could not come. I was a bit relieved because last time I was there with him, I said the fellow should be suspended for 3 months. So the fact that I'm always invited only once is also kind of very comforting because I can say what I really want to say. And without fear of fervor.
But we want you to say what we want you to say.
And because of paucity of time and because my dear colleague Hiramanji has taken most of our time, so in the true traditions of JNU, I might add, I'm going to make 3 or 4 points. And at the outset, I'm very grateful that our beloved Swapanda has already mentioned this person called William Dalrymple because I was about to castigate him, but I was very sure if Swapanda would mind it or not. But I'm very happy that Swapanda, who represents Bengal and England, and loves Mamata and Margaret in equal measure, had very kind words to say about this backpacker with tattered chappals who's now become a historian. It's not the fact that he's writing books. Everyone is free. It's a free country. You can write whatever trash you want. But the fact of the matter is that recently he was insinuating that only after the wrecks that he saw about the Kalinga War and the devastation that had happened, Ashoka converted or resorted to Buddhism. Without telling the fact, as has been told by Indian historians, especially Sanjeev Sanyal in his monumental book, that Ashoka was already a Buddhist 4 years before he undertook the Kalinga War. This is the sort of misinformation that we've been fed, not just by people who, and Dalrymple has come up with great phrases, I have to say, but the best phrase that has ever been come up is actually to describe Dalrymple. He's been called a giant seal in a kaftan. Nothing more encapsulates Dalrymple than that. The fact of the matter is that such blatant lies have been fed to us for 70 years that I think the time has come to stop blaming the historians and start blaming the politicians. I'm absolutely fed up that we draw the line at some charlatan or some guy who's resorted to writing books on history, or what has been happening with our leftist quack historians. Most of them unfortunately belong to the university where both of us come from. I think we have to draw the line, because the problem is not the books. Out of every 100 books that are written, 90 are trashy. So does that mean that we should ban them? No, left does that. In fact, Dalrymple was the one at the forefront of cancelling the books that he didn't like. A very famous example happened 2 years ago. No, I think let's stop blaming historians. I firmly believe change happens from the top down. Awakening might happen from the bottom up. But what use is awakening if you are impotent? What is the point of being woken up by having your shoulders shaken? Wake up, this is happening, and you find you can't do anything. So let me give you 4 examples very quickly, keeping the time. Let me do a lot of quoting out here, lest I may be liable to defamation, but thankfully Jay is on the thing, so he'll save me yet again. Last time he only took kachori as a fee. I don't know, maybe idlis this time round. Quote, remembering Maulana Azad on his birth anniversary, he is widely admired for his scholarly nature and intellectual prowess. He remained at the forefront of our freedom movement, working closely with other leading lights, promoting unity and brotherhood. Unquote. This is a quote by Narendra Modi. Now let me quote Maulana Azad. Quote, be extremely hard against kafirs, but extremely kind amongst ourselves, unquote. All relationships in the world can break down. Father can turn against son, brother against brother, mother can shun her child, but the relationship of a Muslim with a Muslim can never be severed, unquote Maulana Azad. I think we are tired of virtue signaling and political correctness. We are tired of blaming people who resort to writing trash about history. Change has to come from top down. And if the topmost person believes this to be the true facet of our history and what is to be taught in our schools, eulogize these people, then I don't think there is any redemption for this country. Quote, met Muslim community delegation. I presented the sacred chadar, which will be placed during the urs of the beloved Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti at the esteemed Ajmer Sharif Dargah, unquote, Narendra Modi. Quote, I will raise these Ansagar Hindu temples to the ground. I have come to India to fight the holy war against infidels, unquote, Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti. The Hanafi Sufi saint who fought alongside the demonic Gauri helped capture Prithviraj and unsparingly converted Hindus. Quote, best wishes to my sisters and brothers of Goa on the day of the feast of Saint Francis Xavier. May this occasion further the spirit of harmony and brotherhood in our society, unquote, by Narendra Modi. Quote, Hindu gods and their idols are as dirty as they are ugly and horrible to look at. Witnessing the destruction of temples and idols gives me so much joy, unquote, Saint Francis Xavier, the chief architect of the Goa Inquisition that led to the conversion, torture, and murder of countless Hindus. Keeping time, I shall allow these quotes to simmer in and kind of go inside your brains and think whether what is it we want for our future generation. To be disallowed to be able to discern what is a good book or a bad book, or to be able to discern who is a good leader and a leader that is leading us astray by eulogizing the people whose truth should come out. Thank you.
Thank you. Among many thanks that I need to give you, one is for keeping time, and secondly, not at all disappointing in provoking all of us. Thank you very much, Anand. I'll come back to you.
Only one question, will I be ever called again?
That is up to Sudhanshuji, but thank you very much. Now, of course, now, as I said earlier, one and only J. Sai Deepak ji. He doesn't need any introduction, he has been introduced. He has a massive fan following among the young and the old alike. Thank you very much, Sai.
Vande Mataram, Jai Shri Ram. I'm coming directly from the court. It's a Sunday, I know, because we have had a long day of conferences with judges today, hence the colonial avatar. So there's a bit of exhaustion here, but Swapan Das Gupta, sir, never fails to say the right thing. He's fantastic in what he said, because I think that's most important. He touched the nub of it. So you've got facts from Dr. Jain. You've got the meta aspect from Swapanda. You've got AK-47 from Anand. Let me just connect all these, because I think that is the advantage of going at the fag end of it. What Swapanda refers to as irreverence is 100% correct, and it's irreverence that comes from being the 90s kid who saw your history being massacred in textbooks. Enough is enough effectively captures our sentiment. From there, you go and you try and arm yourself with knowledge so that you're in a position to disseminate it. Each time you try to present something about your history, the first thing that is missing is empathy, and the first thing that is present is judgment. I don't care for what others think, and this is the sentiment from the Hindu community. So Anand blames politicians, I am blaming the Hindu community. No other community, when presented with this kind of horrendous genocidal massacres that it has survived, reacts with this kind of judgment towards its own ancestors. They were defeated because they were cowards. They were defeated because they lacked Kshatriya spirit. They were defeated because they were divided. They were defeated because they were casteist. They were defeated because they were patriarchal. You can't find nothing positive about your people? What is the point of history if it doesn't take you closer to your people? What is the point of it? If history is meant to be another weapon or a stick that you use to settle scores on social media, burn it. It has no purpose according to me then. If the point is to settle, let's say, debates on social media or in friend circles or to massage your own bloated egos, what is the point of it? How are you remotely doing justice to all the efforts that Dr. Jain has just pointed out? If people shed their blood, their lives, their women, their children, their men, everybody under the sun to protect the Murti, and hundreds of years later, today we have a debate within the Hindu community whether we should take back all the occupied sites. Why should you read history if this is your reaction after becoming aware of the kind of the trouble that we've gone through to recover one place? So what is this about? So is history your weapon to beat the Congress? Is history your weapon to beat the left? Is history your weapon to beat your friend who's a leftist or a Marxist or a communist? Is history your weapon to go closer to your ancestors? Where is the sense of empathy in trying to understand your own people? That is the curse of Indian historiography today. our reasons for wanting to set right history are fundamentally wrong. Why do you want it in the first place? The opening video that was going on when we sat here, I'm sorry to say this, I mean no disrespect, I found it very difficult to sit through that video. To reduce the sacrifices and the troubles of your ancestors to mere cliches and stereotypes is not done. And the worst part of our history is that it is not in the past, it is a continuing present. The challenges of the past continue today. Perhaps if you were a geographically isolated, let's say, region, so to speak, you can still afford to look at your past with a sense of, let's say, archival sense, in the sense you can look at it, hua tha. So I need to understand in an academic sense, kya hua tha. Everything that has happened is repeating itself. Kal chakra phir se wahin pe aake khada ho chuka hai. The 1920s, according to me, are no different from the 2020s. The only question that I've been constantly asking myself is, at least at this juncture, will we take the right decision instead of making the mistakes of the past? And therefore, when I look at history, I'm blunt about the fact that I'm looking at weaponizing the Hindu mind. I'm absolutely blunt about it from a societal perspective. If you still don't know how to look out for your interest, you deserve everything that you have suffered and everything that will come your way if you don't learn from it. Somebody has to say this. The politician will not. Somebody else has to say this. I'm the last person as a lawyer to discount the importance of power. I'm the last person to say in the larger picture, in the big picture, in the calculus, it doesn't matter. 100% it matters. This congregation has been made possible because of the change from 2014. Let's admit that. But 2014 was made possible because there was a society yearning. Let's admit that as well. The verdict of 9th of November 2019 was made possible because of 496 years of Jaddojahed. By generations of people who did not know whether they'd be remembered or not. Lawyers will get their visibility. Judges will get their visibility. Who is going to talk of the Nihangs and everybody else who fought for 400 years? There was a time when both these communities were fighting together to protect the Kshetra. Can you say the same thing about Punjab of today? Too uncomfortable a fact? Therefore, history is important for Bharat. I don't care whether history is important for anybody else or not. It's extremely crucial for Bharat. Now let me just share a few points based on what Swapanda pointed out. When he quotes Dalrymple's position on Ashoka being half Greek, why is it that there is this dying need on the part of this white man to look for everything that is white, even in Bharat's history? So there's a fantastic book of Thomas Troutman. You should read it. It's a series of books that he's written on the Aryan invasion theory, its origins. You will never be able to understand the caste debate without understanding the history of Aryan invasion theory and vice versa. Remember that. When you're reading Indian history, that is the thumb rule. So when these people come to this country, they're like, we have colonized so many places. It's like the juggernaut of the Australian team finally being defeated in Calcutta. It comes here, and then it's asked, these guys are boggled. This fellow is black. He is an idol worshipper. He's a polytheist. And still he's culturally and spiritually superior to us. That question is repeated over and over again in their personal correspondence because they're hoping to find a fully inferior civilization, which is a defeated civilization. But a defeated civilization is not necessarily an inferior civilization. That is the realization that leads them to the point. If they are superior in some way, then that superiority must be traced back to us. And hence starts the reverse engineering of Indian history by bringing in the Aryan angle that everything that white stands for victory, and therefore at some point, some fellow who was white would have come here, inseminated the blood here, and from there, these guys must have become victorious. That is this dying need. So around that period, they had something called the Tree of Civilization. The Tree of Civilization is the mapping of different civilization based on their superiority and inferiority, which they had mapped for themselves, and who you think would be at the top of that particular pecking order. It has to be the white man. How is this entire thing worked out? Language becomes the basis for understanding somebody's race. Their inability to wrap their heads around Sanskrit leads to the conclusion that Sanskrit must necessarily be a white contribution and therefore an Aryan contribution. And from